The moment you realize she's not just being nice, but watching you, feeling you, responding to something that hasn't even been spoken yet, is the moment the game changes. Most men walk through life blind to these things, not because they're incapable of seeing them, but because they've been taught to ignore their instincts in favor of logic. They've been told to look for direct signs, explicit language, clear messages. But attraction, especially from a feminine soul, doesn't function on the surface. It lives in the undercurrent, in the glances she steals when she thinks you're not looking, in the subtle shift of her weight toward you when she's standing still, in the way her voice softens when it's just the two of you. That's why the world should be perfection, not because it is, but because a man should strive to see it that way. In every moment, perfection hides in plain sight, in the tilt of her head, in the flicker of curiosity in her eyes, in the silence between her words that dares you to read deeper. And if you learn to see the world as perfection, even in its messiness, even in the ambiguity of her signals, you begin to see her more clearly than any other man can. That's the edge, that's the advantage. Because she's not looking for someone to chase her words, she's looking for someone who can feel the truth underneath them. When she tests you, and she will test you, it's never random. Women don't test men to torment them. They test men to reveal them. Her teasing, her slight withdrawal, her sudden unavailability isn't about hurting you. It's about seeing you. It's about finding out what you're made of when the emotional gravity shifts. Do you become reactive, needy, insecure? Do you chase, explain, beg for clarity? Or do you hold your frame, stay centered, and let her come to you? This is where most men lose the thread. They're good when the signals are positive, when she's laughing at their jokes, texting back instantly, leaning in close. But the moment she becomes a little cold, a little distant, a little unpredictable, they panic. They start doubting themselves. They chase. They overcompensate. And in that moment, she sees it. Not the words, but the fracture, the crack in your internal structure, the lack of control. That's the test. Because feminine energy craves strength, not just physical, but emotional. The kind of strength that doesn't flinch in the presence of chaos. The kind that doesn't need to dominate, but simply cannot be moved. That's what she's testing for, without ever saying a word. And the man who passes that test is the one who understands this. She's not asking for reassurance. She's asking for grounding. She wants to feel safe in your presence, not because you promise safety, but because you embody it. Think about the last time you were around a woman who made your chest tighten, who stirred something in you just by walking into the room. Her presence was magnetic. You couldn't quite explain why. Maybe she wasn't the most beautiful woman in the room, objectively speaking, but she had something, a vibration, a rhythm. She wasn't just pretty, she was alive in her body. She moved with an unconscious grace, a lightness in her steps, a softness in her expression, but something else too, an intensity behind the eyes. That intensity is what draws men in. And yet, most men can't hold that intensity for long, because the more feminine a woman becomes, the more pressure she exerts on the masculine frame. Not through aggression, but through feeling, through the sheer weight of her emotional energy. It's like standing in front of a storm, not a loud one, but one that builds quietly. You can feel the air shift, and if your internal structure isn't solid, you'll collapse. That's why women don't chase men who are overly logical, robotic, or passive. They want a man who can match their emotional energy without drowning in it. A man who doesn't need her to be less expressive in order for him to feel safe. That's what it means to be masculine in the presence of seduction. You hold, you feel everything, and you flinch at nothing. You see, a woman's seduction is never accidental, even when it looks like it is. She might not plan it consciously. She might not sit down and script out the exact words, the exact glances, the precise touch of her fingertips, but her body knows, her instincts know. Her femininity is a living language, and she speaks it fluently, even if you don't. When she sits closer than necessary, when she fixes her hair just as you walk by, when she mirrors your body language without thinking. It's not coincidence, it's communication. But only a man who's attuned can hear it. Only a man who has learned to read emotional tension like a compass can feel the difference between friendliness and attraction. That's why so many men get friend-zoned. They're not reading the signs, or worse, they misread them. They assume every kind gesture is romantic interest, or they dismiss genuine seduction as mere politeness. Either way, they're blind. But the man who sees, the man who feels her energy before she even speaks, he holds a different kind of power. Because he doesn't need confirmation, he already knows. And women feel that. They feel when a man is present, aware, not easily swayed by beauty or games, but grounded in himself. That kind of man doesn't chase, he draws. But let's go deeper, because seduction isn't always sweet. Sometimes it's sharp, sometimes it cuts. A woman who's deeply attracted to you won't always make things easy. In fact, the more she feels, the more likely she is to hide it, especially if she's afraid. And this is the paradox most men don't understand. When a woman starts to fall for you, her behavior might actually become more erratic, not less. She might pull away. She might criticize you more. She might challenge you in ways that feel unfair or even cold. And if you're inexperienced, you'll take it personally. You'll think she's lost interest. You'll think she doesn't like you anymore. But often, the truth is the opposite. She feels so drawn to you that she doesn't trust it yet. Her tests become sharper, her emotions more volatile, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something right. You're penetrating her defenses, and that terrifies her. So she creates distance to see if you'll collapse, to see if your confidence was just performance, to see if your masculine frame can truly withstand pressure, or if you'll start begging for validation the moment she withdraws affection. That's why so few men graduate from interest to intimacy, because they confuse her resistance for rejection when really it's the final test, the doorway, the threshold. If you walk through it calmly without demanding, without flinching, without chasing, you win her. Not just her body, but her trust. And trust is the true currency of seduction. Now here's something even deeper. A woman doesn't just seduce with her body or her energy, she seduces with absence. Let that sink in. Her absence, when strategically placed, is often more powerful than her presence. That's why some of the most unforgettable women in your life are the ones who left you hanging, who didn't return the text, who disappeared just when things felt electric, and you couldn't stop thinking about her, not because she gave you more, but because she gave you less. That's the paradox of feminine energy. It expands through withdrawal. It makes itself larger in your mind by retreating in real life. And the man who understands this doesn't panic. He doesn't rush to close the gap. He lets the space exist. He sits in the discomfort of the unknown and remains unmoved. Because he knows the game. He knows that tension creates desire, and he doesn't fear it. In fact, he uses it. He lets her absence become a mirror, reflecting his strength, his calm, his self-sufficiency. And when she returns, and she almost always does, he doesn't punish her. He doesn't gloat. He just lets her feel the difference between a man who needs her presence to feel whole and a man who was whole all along. And this, ultimately, is what seduction reveals. Not just who she is, but who you are. Every glance, every touch, every withdrawal is an invitation. Not to chase her, but to meet yourself. To ask, can I remain grounded in the face of desire? Can I feel attraction without becoming a slave to it? Can I see beauty without being blinded by it? Can I hold space for her emotions, her signals, her silence, without needing to control or define them? This is the art of masculine presence. It's not about being cold or detached. It's about being deeply attuned but emotionally sovereign. It's about mastering the inner world so completely that no external fluctuation, not even the most intoxicating woman, can throw you off balance. And when you reach that place, something miraculous happens. You stop trying to seduce women, and they start seducing you, not out of manipulation, but out of magnetism, because they can feel the weight of your presence. They can feel the steadiness in your gaze, the depth in your voice, the unshakable stillness in your core. And that stillness, that's what draws her in more than anything, because in a world full of noise, the man who is silent inside is irresistible. So the next time you find yourself wondering if she's into you, don't ask for signs. Don't beg the universe for clarity. Just pause, feel, observe. Is she leaning in? Is her energy softening in your presence? Is she mirroring your rhythm? Is she testing your emotional strength with subtle withdrawals, only to return a little closer each time? Then you already have your answer. She's not going to tell you, she's going to show you. And if you know how to see it, the world, her world, becomes perfection. Not because it always gives you what you want, but because it always gives you exactly what you're ready for. And if you're ready to see what most men miss, to feel what most men fear, to stand where most men fold, then she will feel it. And she will never forget you. Not because of what you said, not because of how you looked, but because of what you made her feel when you said nothing at all.